Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Rigor Mortis Paranormal. Tonight's terrifying stories include a house with a violent history reveals a shadow person, an encounter with a mysterious laughing ghost, a presence running the halls of housing projects, and an unwelcome visitor at a rest stop. You guessed it, today's topic is on shadow people and sleep paralysis. My name is David and this is Robert.
Hello.
Alright, we've got a loaded show today.
Yes, we do. I was taking a peek at some of the stories we had, and we were just discussing this on the last episode. We got into a little bit about sleep paralysis. What sleep paralysis, in a small definition, is sleep paralysis is a phenomenon in which an individual, either during falling asleep or waking, temporarily experiences an inability to speak, move, or to react. Generally, what that is it happens during the state of waking up and sleep. And sometimes it often is accompanied by terrifying hallucinations. This is mixed in with not being able to move or react because of the paralysis. And often these hallucinations involve a person or supernatural being suffocating by a feeling of pressure on one's chest and difficulty breathing. Another hallucination type involves intruders, human or supernatural, entering one's room, lurking outside one's window, and the accompany of a feeling of dread. Why this happened is not clear. One theory is it results from disrupted REM sleep, which normally induces complete muscle atonia to prevent sleepers from acting out your dreams. For example, let's say during REM sleep, which is your deepest part of your sleep, that's when you're dreaming. This sleep atonia that results from REM when you're asleep, your deepest part of sleep again, it basically just shuts your body down so you don't react dreams out. Example, let's say you're having a dream, you're fighting someone. Well, this shuts down that part where you're actually throwing punches or, whatever.
It's like a safety mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. And then for a fat guy like me eating, maybe I have a pillow halfway down my throat. Or even worse, me removing my clothes from an erotic dream and acting that out. I know nobody wants to see that, but it's just, I guess, like you said, a safety mechanism. But you were talking also about a chemical in the brain. That's something I didn't see.
Yeah, this is something else I had found from a website called livescience.com. Here, I'll just read this to you. It's a pretty quick paragraph. It says, imagine waking up and you feel you can't move a muscle. It's dark, but you're sure you feel a presence in the room, hovering near your bed or perhaps sitting on your chest, crushing the breath out of you. This weird phenomenon is known as sleep paralysis, and a new study finds that understanding why it happens helps people feel less distressed after an episode. Believing that sleep paralysis is brought on by supernatural, on the other hand, makes people feel more unnerved. Sleep paralysis occurs when the brain and body aren't quite on the same page when it comes to sleep. During rapid eye movement, sleep dreaming is frequent, but the body's muscles are relaxed to the point of paralysis, perhaps to keep people from acting out their dreams. Researchers have found that two brain chemicals, glycine and GABA, are responsible for this muscle paralysis. So, yeah, basically what you're saying is the same thing like you just mentioned a while ago.
It's almost exactly, except for the two chemicals. I didn't get that part, GABA, hey, and the other one.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what the Ramones are writing about. GABA.
But it's basically all the same thing, that they're talking about the same thing. Maybe that's just a mechanism that happens where you can't breathe, and then like you read it there too, like somebody's sitting on your chest or putting pressure on it. This is my question to you, because I know we're gonna hear it eventually, or people are out there probably saying it right now. We're talking about sleep paralysis and we're talking about paranormal.
Right. And we've discussed all the scientific reasons behind it.
And this is the thing, they're going to say, well, you just answered your own question. That isn't paranormal, it's sleep paralysis. Is it or is it not? Is it paranormal or is it sleep paralysis?
There's a fine line, because if you think about it, some of the stories we have tonight, for example, people are seeing shadows, but they're swearing they're awake. I mean, is there like an exact second, somewhere in between waking up and falling asleep, some sort of portal maybe that's allowing demons to come in, or not demons, but something to come in and mess with you?
Maybe it's an invitation for them to come because you're most vulnerable at that time. This is another thing. How many times do you sleep and you have dreams? How many times can you remember those dreams, for real?
I hardly remember mine. Sometimes because of the alcohol. The other times just because I'm lazy.
No, but you rarely remember your dreams, except there's these ones that come along, and are they dreams? or is that something you're really experiencing? It's that terrifying. Y'all be the judge. We're going to go ahead and play these.
Oh, before we do that.
Oh, sweet Jesus. I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah.
We got a research girl here. Jasmine, why don't you say hello?
Hey guys, thanks for letting me be a part of this. I love everything creepy and paranormal, so I'm pretty excited.
Jasmine has been helping us do research on some of these topics. We're getting a little bit more organized, I think, in the first one.
Oh, yeah.
We were kind of all over the place.
It always helps. I know me and you get busy with trying to get all this, and you busy with editing, and I do a lot of research, and Jasmine does a lot of research, and so she's a great addition. Great help. We need it.
I'll try to bring you guys like the most accurate story.
The most up-to-date.
Up-to-date stuff. Plus, she brings us beer, too. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
No, we're not.
Tip jar.
We might have to edit that part. No, I'm just kidding. Jasmine, you had a story for us, too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Jasmine's got a great one that goes right in line with our subject today.
My story starts off, I want to say I was about maybe 10. Anyways, we were on a trip to California. It was me, my grandma, my grandpa, my uncle, and I guess I fell asleep somewhere along the way. I remember New Mexico.
Okay.
And
so you're taking I-10, huh?
I love the drive, man. Nice scenery. You said that's awesome scenery. Yeah.
All I remember was construction throughout the way. So
Yeah. Well, at 10, you probably didn't know what street you were on anyway. But
a long highway. But
sorry.
well, in my dream, I remember that I had, or I guess when I was sleeping, I woke up and I looked to the left of me and my grandma was sitting there and we were at a rest area and I looked out the window and I could see this really black shadow person. It's like so dark. It was already dark outside, so I don't know if you can imagine seeing like a darker than dark shadow coming towards you with the top hat. He was just walking directly towards the door and I felt paranoid. At that age, my uncle and my mom were always putting stuff in my head like, oh, somebody's gonna steal you. So I was like, oh, I gotta lock the door and protect my grandma, and I just couldn't move. Like, I could not pick up my hand to lock the door. And I could see the lock, I could see the man, I could see my grandma, I could move my head, or at least my eyes, but I couldn't pick up my arms to lock the door. And I remember just snapping out of it, and when I came to, my grandpa and my uncle were in the front seat, which I had remembered they had walked to the restroom. So everything was exactly the same. I looked out right away. There was no shadow person.
So you didn't realize you were at a rest area?
Yeah, I guess I had
You were asleep when you got to the rest stop. So you didn't even know you were at a rest stop, but when you woke up, you were at a rest stop. So.
Yeah, and it's just, It's weird because everything was the same, and I didn't see the rest stop until I woke up and saw my uncle and my grandpa sitting in front. So I don't know how I imagined it exactly like it was.
That is crazy.
Creepy things do happen at rest stops. We really need to guarantee. I didn't do that.
That's awesome.
Good.
Yeah, you need to guarantee the safety of your kids. But
that's what I felt like when I was getting up. Rest areas, they're not always safe, so maybe something in the past happened. And you mentioned that they had a top hat or something like that. Maybe it was way back in the day. Maybe before it was developed land, something bad happened at that time. Could be just about anything.
But you know what's crazy is that you dreamt you were at the rest stop, and when you woke up, you're actually at a rest stop. So that kind of tells you that maybe you were in the middle of waking up at the time, but you were in that sleep paralysis state, I guess. And
that's what I guess if I had imagined like everything was the same, who was really walking towards the window? I don't know. Wow. Maybe I saw somebody.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like...
As just said earlier, this one, and then you mentioned that you couldn't raise your hand, and you're thinking at the same time, because you're saying, well, you had to protect grandma, you had to protect yourself, and you're trying, so you're acknowledging that, hey, I need to save. Yeah. You woke up and it's like, what's going on?
At that age, I wasn't really like, ghosts. I was like, stranger danger.
Yeah.
Was it?
Lock the doors, but then you couldn't even lock the doors.
Yeah.
So.
But was it the same rest area in your dream when you woke up?
When I woke up, everything was the same, aside from when I woke up, my uncle and grandpa were actually in the front seat instead of in the restroom. That's the only difference.
Wow. So. That is crazy. That's really trippy.
All right, man. You got to keep them coming, Jazz. Keep them coming. Our next story comes to us from Pat. He's a buddy of ours, a local musician here in San Antonio. Go ahead, Pat. Tell us your story.
Hey, what's up? Patrick Fierce here from San Antonio, Texas. First off, I'd like to say I think it's pretty cool you guys got this podcast going on. gives people the opportunity to share their stories, such as myself. I actually have 2 stories, but I'll share one with you today. What I'm about to describe, some people have an explanation for it. The scientific explanation for it would be called sleep paralysis. There's other people that think something else is going on. Demons, other dimensions, just some otherworldly activity. But you go ahead and do your own research and you look it up. I never knew about this type of thing till it happened to me. And when I did the research, I found out that a lot of people share pretty similar stories. So I think that's something that's pretty weird. But let me go ahead and tell the story and you can decide. So a couple years ago, I'm thinking 5 or 6 years ago this happened. I'm laying down in bed. This is during the day. This is like mid-afternoon. I didn't have much sleep the night before, so I'm pretty tired and exhausted. I'm laying there and I'm just kind of looking at the wall, and there's like a window and a door and everything in the room. I'm just looking at it, and all of a sudden a shade of black just sweeps across, and it's like different shades of black. So the door turns into a shade of black, the dresser in a darker shade of black. So it just looks like a shadow just sweeps across everything, and like it is, everything's still there as I'm looking at it, and it just turns black. So that was pretty freaky, and I'm laying there and I'm like, whoa. So when that happens, I kind of freak out and I try to move, but I can't. I'm paralyzed. So as that's happening, I start hearing footsteps back and forth in the hall, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's freaking me out. All of a sudden, a figure comes in, all in black, about 3 feet tall, runs in, stops, laughs, and then runs out. When that happened, I really got scared and tried to like shake myself out of it, and I did. And when that happened, I could see like the whole shade of everything that was black come back to normal. Everything there like it is, the door, the dresser, the window, everything just comes back to normal. I never experienced that again to that extent. A couple times I've had the paralyzed feeling, but not as intense as what I've experienced then. So like I said, go ahead and do research and you'll see that story that I just told. You'll see that a lot of people do see this figure in black, a shadow figure. So I don't know, what is it? Are we crossing over to another dimension? Or are these demons? Are these aliens? I don't know. Spirits? Anyway, I'll go ahead and call back another time with my other story. Thanks a lot for letting me share my story.
What the hell was that, man?
That was juicy. I like that one.
That kind of reminds me of Jasmine's story, except he didn't mention falling asleep and he didn't mention waking up.
He said he was just laying there.
Right, so that was crazy. That's a scary story.
He did mention that he couldn't move also. That's paralysis by itself.
But then again, he saw the shadow person. What's
not
with
that,
the
he
shadow
heard
people?
the shadow person.
Yeah,
what the
it
fuck
laughed
is that
at him.
laughing?
I know.
Here we go back. We're talking about the same things. Basically, with Jazzy's story, this one here, the same thing where they can't move.
And they remember exactly what was there. Pat saw everything just like it was. Jasmine saw everything just like it was. The other thing that was interesting was the height.
Exactly. That caught me. You know what?
Right.
That was something else that stuck out also.
Yeah, he said it was short. In this week's episode, most people are talking about them being taller.
Jasmine, I know we've talked about this before also. It's like a dark shadow in the corner and it grows to a huge shadow, just like a black mass. That's, I guess, another demonic shadow person or so. But going back to what we were talking about, we're coming up with the same things, how they have paralysis. And I think he even mentioned that he couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
So it's weird. And we just touched on this subject. We didn't really go too deep into detail. So y'all feel free to look it up and maybe do. I think that's a good idea.
I was reading about the sleep paralysis. It was a lot of people that were saying, like, they also called it old hag.
Okay.
It was like an old hag. Instead of the shadow person, it was an old hag sitting on your chest. But now I see a lot more stories with the shadow man.
That is crazy because that brings up a story that I'm going to mention towards the end of the episode of our brother, Steven.
Oh, that guy had delicious stories. Really good one.
It was a crazy one, but we'll come back to it at the end of the episode.
Okay, Jasmine, in your research for the hag that you did it say anything about like shadow people and sleep paralysis?
Hold on a second. What
is that?
What is she looking at? What the hell?
What are you looking at?
It's nothing.
It is. That's what does Bigfoot smell. Like, what the hell? I'm like, what are you doing?
What does Bigfoot smell like?
We don't even.
I don't ask you why you douse your underwears in Gold Bonnet.
Oh!
You don't ask me questions.
Because it's hot, man. I get a bad ass rash, man. I mean, that's a serious condition.
It is summer. It is summer.
Yeah, that's a real condition. Thanks for bringing that up, Jazz.
We don't have any on Bigfoot that I know of right now.
We're not even doing a Bigfoot segment. What is?
I don't know. I wanted to know how you smelled.
You want to know how he smells? Okay. All right.
Here we go.
Do you remember?
Open up a can of worms.
Okay. Do you remember that time we went to lunch and I took a shit in my pants? I had a bad accident.
Are you talking about the time where you tried to go into the restroom, the woman's restroom, and wash your underwear out? But no, you didn't want to leave because you weren't done eating.
No, not that time. It was.
Hold on a second. Hold on. You said no, so it's got to be the time. Do you remember when we went to Corpus Christi? You know the truckers, they pay for the showers. They called his number. Man, you cut in line. You took a shit in his shower. You used his towel to wipe your rear end.
Yeah, I used his
The
towel.
guy was pissed,
I didn't want to
man.
kick my ass. No,
He was pissed off.
No, it wasn't that time. Yeah, I remember that.
It wasn't that time either.
Hey, Grandpa, was it that time when we're at Denny's and you pooped your pants and the waitresses had to pitch in all their money to buy you some new pants?
No.
Oh.
What the hell are you doing in here?
Hey, you're not supposed to be in here.
No,
We're recording our podcast, dude.
No, I remember that. Yeah, they donated their tip, but no, man.
Man.
It was that time I was at that a Mexican restaurant. I ordered the damn chili rellenos.
That explains it all, man.
Yeah, they went south on me like fast, man. And it was the time where the lady threw up on her daughter's lap.
Yeah, and they had to close down for the rest of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And the motherfucker tried to he sent me the bill. Motherfucker, man, $12,000, Dave.
$12,000.
Yes, 12 grand. Yeah.
How are they gonna pay for
Yeah,
this?
motherfucker thinks I'm Donald Trump. I don't even make $12,000 in the motherfucking year. How the hell?
Oh, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, come on, man. Bill Gates, man. Come on, shit. All right. Let's
Into
get back
the
into
serious
this. Yeah.
stuff.
Okay, our next story is from Pete. Pete writes into us, "Hey fellas, my story happened in a house my family and I were renting about 10 years ago. One night, I was laying down on my bed when suddenly I felt like somebody was holding me down. I couldn't move. I couldn't move my head. I couldn't move my arms. Nothing. As I was laying there frozen, I saw a form of a shadow pass by my hallway that looked too tall to be my kids or my wife. I couldn't move. I'm totally freaking out. This shadow actually cast a shadow. I thought there's someone in my house or intruder. I did not know what was going on, and I still couldn't move. Eventually, I started to free myself, and when I was able to free myself, I got up and started checking my house. Nothing. There was nothing nowhere. When I came to my senses, I had noticed that the house was very cold. It was so cold that I could see my breath in front of me. It was at that point I realized my children and wife were still in the house. I immediately went looking for them to make sure they were safe. My children were asleep in their room, and I went back to my room where my wife was asleep. I had checked the whole house and I did not see nothing. I also had noticed that the temperature in the house seemed to be getting normal and everything felt a little bit more at ease. The next day, my neighbor was outside doing his lawn. I approached him and relayed the same story that happened to me. He told me he was not surprised that other tenants before me that were renting that house did not stay for very long. He claims that somebody was murdered in that house, but he did not go into specifics about what happened. Needless to say, we stayed about 2 more months and we moved out of that house. Since then, I have not experienced anything like that in my life. Thanks for hearing my story.
Wow. That is crazy. Another shadow person.
Checklist. We have paralysis, a shadow person, and something that gave it a bonus is the extreme coldness that got in his house.
Oh, don't forget the murder.
Exactly. Okay, and I'm thinking that's just because of the history of the house. The shadow person that he saw running by or passing by his hallway, maybe he was replaying that night or something. Maybe he was running away from somebody trying to murder him. Maybe it was a murderer trying to chase him. That's kind of interesting when you think about that. Like, hey, is it playing it out in front of me? And then another thing, when he saw the shadow cast the shadow. So he thought it was an actual intruder.
Yeah, that's crazy because you don't normally hear that either. You don't hear of a shadow casting a shadow.
And he checked his whole house. He didn't see anything. And then to be that scared and not notice, and then eventually you're like, hey, I'm blowing smoke. Hey, man, what's this? It's cold, man.
Right.
You know. So that just kind of gives you that more creepier vibe.
You were talking about it maybe being a residual haunting, right?
That's what I was thinking. A residual. It'd be kind of cool to go to that house if you could ever find it, or if he did do like EVPs and see what you catch on that.
Oh, yeah.
That would be something.
Yeah.
That was a good story, Pete. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Appreciate
definitely. That was a great one. Speaking of EVPs, I got a buddy of mine who got some really cool EVPs at this place I used to work. He's passed away now, but he had some really cool stuff that I really wish I could have gotten from him. He worked in an office about 20 feet away from me, and the stuff he showed me was just, it was ridiculous. Some of the EVPs.
Crystal clear stuff, like voices.
They were really clear. I mean,
creepy voices?
Yeah, there was one voice where he just said, hello, just like real clear as day. And his daughter was in the background playing because he came to work one day on a Saturday. So you can hear his daughter in the background. She's playing. She's like, oh, look, Dad. And he's talking to her. And all of a sudden you just hear, hello. I mean, but you hear the word plain as day.
And they were by themselves in there. Yeah,
and that was
creepy,
it. There was nobody else there. Totally off topic, but I just thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, EVPs are always cool. You remember the time that we were down at the Black Swan Inn?
Ooh, Black Swan Inn is a great place in San Antonio.
Yeah, that's a very haunted place. We were down there. Actually, we were down there with your son, and we were trying to capture EVPs there. We didn't get so lucky, but I'm thinking that would be a nice place to return to go do.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that place. I love that place. Okay, this next story is the one I've been kind of waiting for. It comes to us by Nathan. He's discussing hauntings inside of projects.
Yeah, the projects, yeah.
So let's go ahead and get on with this story here.
Hey, this is Nathan. Okay, so I was staying with my sister, Rachel, and she lived in the housing projects. It was a pretty rough neighborhood. There's people shot and killed, pretty regular basis out there. So, if you believe in those kinds of things, in spirits or whatever, there's a ton of them lurking around there. One of the examples that was really unsettling was in the middle of the night, I want to say it was maybe 3, 4 in the morning, Rachel was asleep on the mattress in her room with her baby, Ricky, the youngest at the time. She felt someone walking around on the mattress, the pressure of footsteps around her body. She immediately thought, oh, it's my baby Ricky. Ricky's walking around. When she opened her eyes, half asleep, she realized that Ricky was there asleep next to her. She had her arm extended next to him and her other on her hip. And when she realized Ricky was not the one walking around on the bed, she was startled awake by a bite on her hand. She felt a mouth clamp down in her hand. She shot up out of bed, and everyone woke up in the house. She came outside, and we were all frazzled and thought, well, holy shit, something bit you. I thought it was a rat, because what else is going to bite you, right? A rodent or something. It was actually, I saw it myself. And if I'm honest, I don't know if I believe in ghosts or whatever, but I looked at her hand, and she had a small jaw mark. Like it came from a child's mouth. There were teeth marks pushed into her hand. They left such a mark, it left bruises, and you could clearly see the mouth, like the overbite on the hand. So something bit her, and she doesn't know what. Someone bit her. She said it felt like a kid, and that was just one of the things that happened there. Her boyfriend at the time, Richard, he actually was sitting in bed one night smoking, and he looked over and saw this tall shadow. Actually, he just thought it was a person walking down the hallway. And since it was a bad neighborhood, he thought, oh, maybe someone broke in. He got up and looked down the hall and said that this thing was as tall as the ceiling. So Richard chases this thing down the hallway because he thinks a person broke in, and he sees it cut the corner. And to him, it just looks like a lot of people say, it's a big, tall, dark figure, maybe wearing a cloak or some kind of flowing thing. But he still thinks it's a person. And I think he actually went to go grab his gun, shot down the hallway. This thing cut the corner, and as he spun around the corner, it was gone. There was just always things like that happening. I mean, if these are secondhand stories, you need to talk to Ray. But the mouth bite thing, to me, again, I don't necessarily even know that I believe in these things, but I know that she got bit in the hand by something tiny. I mean, I don't even know that Ricky had all of his teeth, and it wasn't her. She didn't bite her. It wasn't Richard. This was like a toddler's mouth. The bite marks were right on the webbing between her index and her thumb. The way like a nervous child bites down. and it bit down so hard that it left marks. If I remember correctly, there was bruising, and there was definite teeth marks. I don't know if it broke the skin. I don't remember breaking the skin, but it was definitely tooth marks and bruising. And to me, it was scary because a ghost is walking around scaring you. Who cares? This thing was actually biting. It was fucking with him. It was scary, because in that time I saw someone dead in the street that got shot. So Lord knows what happened in these rooms. I hope some of this is useful, guys. If I think of other things, I'll give you all a ring back. But all right. Anyways, thanks for listening, fellas. Bye.
Damn, Rob, I guess the ghosts are violent in the courts too, huh?
Oh, yeah. Like he said, in that particular housing project, he said that they had all kinds of violent and terrible things that happen almost on a daily basis. So you can only imagine that that's probably what's bringing that on. Not only that, wasn't that a trip when he said that she got bit? That's freaky. I mean, that really freaked me out.
That's crazy. Yeah, getting bit on. I was gonna say getting bit on the hand, but getting bit, period. That's something else.
Yeah,
man.
And he brought up the fact how his sister's husband was chasing this shadow person down. That's just kind of a trip. I guess that's like a daily experience. These guys don't know if somebody's in their house or not. But when he got down to the nitty gritty, there was actually no person there. And so I guess that you think LA, Chicago, New York, all the bigger cities, you think they have kind of like similar stories of paranormal and things of that nature because of the violence there?
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it matters where you're at. If you die a violent death, you come back. I don't know, with some kind of vengeance, maybe?
Well, you're saying, I've read about that too. It's like a tragic incident that happened suddenly.
Like abruptly. Or
There you go. Okay, how do you account for when somebody's sick and they pass on and they come back? That's just someplace they love to be, and maybe they couldn't cross over. You know how they say, crossing over to the other side, go to the white
Yeah,
light,
but this
whatever.
is like coming back, biting people. So maybe it was violent.
There you go, Jasmine. Maybe like a violent ghost. And I'm not knocking none of these places. I mean, we've all been there. But
Well, it's so secret that a lot of...
I know, but I don't want somebody to... Yeah, I'm not making fun of it. I'm sure there is a Ozzy and Harriet family living in some project somewhere. I don't think it was those ones, though.
I seriously doubt that. And it's strange that you mentioned Richard was chasing after the ghost with a gun. I mean, even the ghost in the project's got to be scared too.
I really was running. And then they brought up what shadow people, and we're seeing that here too.
Well, I read a lot of stories where, like, the shadow people are known more to be, like, a malicious entity.
Demons or,
It's bad, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. I've heard there's been shadow people that never bothered people before, never done any harm.
I've heard the same thing with shadow people. I guess here also, since all the violence that went down in this particular housing project, I'm sure that would have been one of the causes that brought, maybe even something that happened inside of that particular unit.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to really discuss that. And this is just something way off topic. Well, it may not be because we're kind of close. I was reading about how if you buy a house and there was a violent crime or something of that nature, and you have problems with the house, there's actually, I think it's called the stigmata law. They can actually take you to court for not disclosing that information. And people have actually won their cases.
Wow.
That was a totally awesome story. I didn't mean to get off subject there, but that was pretty good.
Going back to sleep paralysis, this story was from our brother Steve.
Yeah, he's had some really awesome ones.
I always remember this one in particular that he told me. It was a really creepy story, and it just stuck to me to this day. Basically, he was laying on the couch and he was having trouble sleeping, but he did fall asleep, and he was just laying on the couch and he woke up and he's looking straight up. Right above him, he says there's a face. It was rocking towards him, but he says I couldn't see the face. It was just totally black. Rocking, like bobbing up and down, almost like bobbing for apples. The face is right above him.
And standing over him.
Yeah, standing over him. And when he's looking up, his head was on the edge of the couch, on the armrest, and he's looking up and he sees his face bobbing up and down right above him. It's not saying anything or doing anything, but the creepiest part was that flesh was dripping. The face was dripping.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
and like flesh was actually like dripping onto him as his face is just rocking up and down. And all of a sudden he snaps and he's awake. So, like I said, it's not a big story or anything, but it was...
Yeah, that's gross, man. That's kind of weird.
I know.
That's a really cool one, man. I don't believe I've heard that one. He had another one where he was always on the phone, and back then there was no cell phones or nothing like that. We're talking like, I want to say 79, 80, around there, yeah.
Those rotary phones.
Well, no, we had the button, where you could, but we had those long ass, like if you wanted any privacy, you had to have those long ass cords that you'd have to go like to, cords. And sit in the closet, So I remember he was saying that he was on the phone, and this is in those
The red apartments?
the red
I guess
apartments. Well, we called them that because they were red brick apartments, and they were almost like housing projects, but they were for low income also. But he was claiming that it was mounted right on the wall in the kitchen, and it was closer to the stove. Well, I remember him claiming that he was on the phone, and he started hearing like weird voices on the phone, and that he started to panic because the cord started to wrap around his neck and start choking him.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he said not only that while he was struggling, he was trying to pull it off and stabilize himself because he was choking, so he put his hand on the burner and on the stove. Well, no, the thing is, when he put his hand on the burner, there was an evil looking face. That was the burner. His hand was on top of a face. Where the burner's supposed to be, there was a face, an ugly face there. Yeah, he told me the same thing. He woke up, his dreams were weird. I used to love to hear his dreams. That's just another fun story from Steve that he told us, and another sleep paralysis story. I can't wait to get a hold of him, and hopefully we can get more stories from him.
That'd be great if he could. He'd call in and tell some of his stories. He's got some good stuff.
Oh, awesome.
But we'd like to thank you guys for listening tonight.
And we're hoping, instead of hearing more of our voices, we'd like to hear y'all's. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear y'all's call-ins. Our number here is 210-901-8666.
That's right. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from y'all. If you don't want to call in and you don't like your voice for some reason or another, you can email us at info@rigormortisparanormal.com. Thanks for listening tonight. We're going to be back at you next week. Thanks again, and peace out.
We'll see you, fellas.